Hello everyone and welcome back. So in the previous part, okay, that we streamed in the morning, we created all of our auth APIs, okay. So we are done with that, and we also added few other methods to our users schema, okay. Now it's time to basically create routing, okay. So we'll be implementing routes so that we can start making API calls, okay, and then we'll be able to basically integrate this APIs into our front end, okay. So that is going to make our app functional. Then the users will be able to basically sign up to our application, log into our application, and also reset their passwords, okay. And we'll be able to manage the users data in our database in a very secure manner, okay, just like we have implemented. So now to start implementing route, we first need to create a folder here, okay. So we'll be organizing it like this. Let's call it routes, okay. So I'll create this folder, and here we'll be creating multiple files for each resource, okay. So for example, authentication, I'm going to call it one resource, okay, or basically you can call it one entity, and similarly user is going to be the other one, okay. So for each entity or resource, we are going to create a new file here, okay, with its name. So for authentication, we are going to call it auth.js, okay. And now in order to create route, we are actually going to make use of the express, okay. So here I'll write const router is equal to, okay, and we just need to basically require express first of all, okay. And just after we have required it or basically imported it, we'll be calling this router method on it. So this is going to create a express router for us, okay. And before basically adding any methods to it, okay, or any basically route, will be first of all exporting it from here. So I'll call module.exports is equal to router, okay. Let's write this expression, okay. Now the next thing here is that we can use this router that we just created, and then after this dot you can see we can implement all of these methods, okay. Get, post, put, okay, these are all the basic CRUD operations that we do generally, and we can easily implement those here. Now in order to log in a user, okay, we'll be basically sending a post request to our backend. So for that we can just use this post method here, and after that in the first place, as you can see, okay, here we need to provide a matcher, okay. That means the path basically. So it will be /login and then the middleware that needs to be executed here. So for that we first need to get hold of this auth controller file that we created, okay. So we have defined various handlers, or you can call it middlewares, okay. So we have many of these in this file, and we are going to basically make use of those, okay. So first of all we are going to get this file which is called auth.js, okay, or basically we can call it auth controller. So let's write here auth controller, okay, and then require. Then we have to basically write the path of that file, so we need to move inside controllers, okay. Then we can go to this auth file, and I would like to request you to please make sure to like this video, okay, and also leave your comment. That is really going to motivate me to create more content, okay, and that will also help this video to reach more people. And so with that said, let's actually start implementing this login route. So we just need to mention or basically refer the handler that we created, okay. So now we have set it up, this router for login. So now what is going to happen, we just need to basically also use this router that we are exporting here in our app.js file, okay. So we'll be using that here, okay. I'll show it to you shortly. And after that we'll be able to make API calls like this. Let's say our app is running on port 3000, okay. So we can do it like this: http localhost, okay, then the port number, okay. After that we'll be basically implementing versioning here, okay. So we'll call this version 1 of our API, Okay, I'll show it to you shortly what I'm talking about. And after that we'll be writing this auth, okay, and then slash login. So if you make a request to this endpoint, okay, after we are done with some setup here, okay, basically some middleware setup, then this will be our login endpoint. Okay, that means in our front-end application we'll be able to make an API call to this endpoint and the users will be able to log into their account. Okay, so that is the whole point here. Now moving back to this auth route that we are creating here. Okay, so first of all I would like to basically create a file here which will call index.js. Okay, and let me explain you why we are creating this. So we are going to have multiple routes here. Okay, let's say for user. Okay, so here similarly let me write it here. We'll be again using this router. Okay, then on this router we'll basically set up this route, okay, which will be using this post method. And let's say the user wants to update its profile. Okay, so for that we must have an endpoint on our backend, okay, that is going to do that job. So for that purpose we will be creating this endpoint slash update me, okay, for the user to update their profile. So we haven't actually created any middleware, okay, to reference here right now. We don't have any user.js controller. So let me just create it quickly. Okay, and we are just going to build a very simple functionality here using which the user will be able to update their profile. Okay, so let's actually do that. So what I'm going to do here is, it's going to be very simple. First of all we'll need the user model here. Okay, so I'm going to require it. Okay, just like this, you can go to models folder, okay, and then import this user model that we created. Now we just need to define one middleware here, and I'm going to call it update me. Okay, the name suggests that this endpoint, or basically this middleware, will be used to update the user's profile. So as usually we can get hold of these three arguments here: request, response, and the next function. Now in order to update the user profile we would basically need to fetch the user here. Okay, basically we would need something through which we can fetch the user's document and then update it. So let me tell you, we have created this protected route, okay, in the morning today. So in part 18, okay, as you can see, if you go back to this auth.js controller, okay, and if you search for this protect, okay, this protect middleware, then you can see at the end we are passing the control to the next middleware, and we are also sending this user property on the request object. Okay, so we can actually access it here because this update me endpoint, or you can say middleware, is going to be protected. And the reason behind that is, you must have seen that in any application you have to first of all log in order to update your profile or change any setting which is related to your account. Okay, this is very simple to understand. Okay, and so for that reason this is going to be a protected route. That means the user has to be logged in or authenticated in order to perform this action. Okay, so as I just explained, we will be getting basically user property on this request. Okay, whenever some middleware is going to be after the protected route, okay, or basically the protected middleware, then we will be able to access the user like this. Okay, now here we just need to basically update the user. So I'm going to write await. Okay, then please make sure you don't confuse this user with capital U and this user with a small u. This is a document, okay, and this is a MongoDB model. Okay, there is a very huge difference between model and a document. A document is like a single record, okay, and a model is basically a blueprint for a collection. Okay, so we can have multiple users in our database, and the blueprint, or you can say the schema or model, is going to remain the same for all of the users. Okay, but each user is going to have their own separate record. Okay, and that is this user with a small u. So I hope I made that very clear here. Okay, so we are just going to call this method find by id and update. Okay, so let's actually use this, and in the first place we have to pass the id of the MongoDB document. So for that we can just simply write here user dot underscore id. Okay, let me actually fix this. I placed two underscores by mistake. Okay, and after this we have to just give all of the fields that we want to update with their values. Okay, and as we have already seen this, okay, previously we created a filtered body. Okay, and the reason behind that was the user might manipulate the request body that is coming to us. Okay, and we don't want to actually accidentally update any field. Okay, or make some unexpected changes to our records in database. And to prevent these kind of attacks, we created this type of filtered body. Okay, you can find it in a previous video. Okay, so we use this filter object. Okay, this function that we created, and to this function in the first place we need to pass request body. Okay, and then a list, or basically you can say arguments. Okay, here these arguments are going to be all the field names that we want to keep in this filtered body. Okay, so out of everything that is contained inside this request body, we'll be filtering out just few fields, basically we can say. So this is going to include first name, because we want to allow our user to update their first name, and similarly we'll also allow users to update their last name. Okay, their about, or you can say bio, and the fourth thing, that is their avatar or their profile picture. Okay, so this is very simple till now. Okay, so this filtered body is basically going to be an object. So in place of this we can just directly reference it here. Okay, and as I have already explained, okay, in a previous middleware that we were creating in auth controller, we can pass few options here. Okay, in the third place in this method find by id and update, and I'll be basically discussing all of these things in very great depth when we'll be learning MongoDB in a separate series. Okay, and for now you can just go through the documentation. Okay, and read more about all of the configuration options that we have. Okay, so here we are just going to pass this property new. Okay, that means the result that we will be getting after the update is done will be the updated document. Okay, so we can basically write updated user. Okay, and so after the update is done we'll get that user here in this variable, or you can say constant. Basically we have used this const keyword here. Okay, and I'm also going to pass one more option here, that is validate modified only, and I have already explained it previously. What this is going to do, this will just basically run all the validators. Okay, that we have placed in the user's schema only on those fields that are actually getting modified, like first name, last name, about, and avatar. Okay, so after that is done we just need to basically send a response back to the user. Okay, so we'll be sending a response with status code of 200. That means everything went well. Okay, and as a response body we'll be sending this JSON data where we'll set the status to success basically. Okay, and in place of data we'll be basically sending the updated user. Okay, and for the message we'll be sending this text user, or basically we can say profile updated successfully. Okay, I hope this is clear to you. Okay, and I hope you guys are following along. Okay, and if you have any doubt then you can just post it in the comment. Okay, or you can join the discords. Okay, as well, link is given in the description. You can freely ask any of your doubts there. Okay, related to this project. And now after we have done this, let's now complete this user routes that we are creating. So first of all we are going to need the user controller here. Okay, so let's basically import that. Okay, so we can write const user controller, okay, and then the require statement, and then the path of this controller. So we'll be navigating back to this controllers folder and then user. Okay, and now if you write here user controller and then use this dot, then you will be able to see that we are able to reference this update me here. Okay, so this is done, and I just want to highlight one thing. As I told you, okay, this update me is going to basically make use of this user that we will be passing after the authentication, or basically you can say protect, like we will be checking if the JWT token supplied to us by the user is legit or not. Okay, after that we'll be sending the control to this next middleware, which is update me. So for that purpose, okay, in order to place middlewares, we just need to call them in sequence. Like after writing this matcher, okay, or path, we just need to define all of the middlewares in sequence. So for that I'll be writing auth controller. Okay, let's understand it by an example. So auth controller dot protect, and let me actually get this auth controller as well. So we can just modify it to auth, and here I'll modify the path to /auth. And what is now going to happen when a request comes, okay, at some endpoint, which will be basically the starting part is going to be basically something like this, v1/user, okay, and before this it will be just localhost 3000, okay, or whatever the port our server is running on, okay, then update me. So when a request comes on this URL, okay, then we'll be basically sending the request through this middleware protect. Okay, that means we'll be running all the logic that we have defined here. We'll be checking if there is a token. If not, then we'll be sending this error response. Okay, then if there is a token, then we'll be decoding it. Okay, then we'll find user based on that. And if there is no user, okay, in this step we are not able to find it, then that means the user is basically not present in our database, user doesn't exist, so we'll throw that error. After that we'll check if the user recently changed their password, okay, and if that check also passes, then finally we'll be sending the user, okay, back to the next middleware, or basically we'll be calling the next middleware, and the next middleware will be able to access this property request.user, okay, and they'll get hold of the user document. So this is very simple. So this middleware will be called first, then after this is done, the control will be passed down to update me, okay, and then after that this logic is going to run, okay, and you must understand how we are getting this user here, okay. Then we are just filtering all of the required field, okay, from the request body, and then just updating the user and sending the response back to the user, okay. So this is a very simple flow, okay. I have explained it to you in very easy words, okay. And the last step here is to just export this router, okay. So we'll call module.exports is equal to router. So we are now done with the user router, okay, and similarly we can actually add few more routes here in the authentication, because we have just defined it for one thing, login, but we also have register, send OTP, verify OTP, forgot password, and reset password. So let's do that, okay. And all of these are basically going to be post method. They are all going to be using post method, because we'll be sending some body, okay. And you can also send body in patch request, okay, in put request, but since we are basically like creating some new document, okay, so that is why we are going to use post method here. But let me actually correct one thing here. Since the user is already there in our database and we are just modifying some part of it, okay, so in that case we'll be using another method here, okay, which is patch. And in case if we override the whole document, then in that case we can use put method, okay. So these put and patch, they are used for updating, okay. This is just a convention. You can basically use get method, okay, you can use get method, and even then you can send some data, okay, in the form of params or query. But that is not ideal. We have to follow the convention, okay, because that makes things easier for everyone. Now back to auth.js, okay, this is login route. Next, let's actually add a route for register. Oops, I have to place my mouse over here, okay, and let's actually write this matcher register and then auth controller dot register. Okay, now I'm just going to basically repeat it and then I'll update those. Now after this register is done, we'll create an route for send OTP. Okay, and if you are wondering why we are creating a route for send OTP, this is because you must have seen many applications provide, or basically most of the applications, an option to resend the OTP if it was not delivered after a certain time interval. Okay, so this route can be very useful in that case. And after that, to verify the OTP, we'll create this endpoint, okay, slash verify dash OTP. Okay, and now the last two, forgot password. Okay, the step in which the user basically submits their email and then they receive a new email with a link to reset their password. Okay, and one more, reset password. In this, basically this endpoint will be used when the user submits their password along with their confirmed password. Okay, and the token will also be sent back to us, which we'll use to basically verify the request and then update the user's password. So let me just write here quickly, reset password. Okay, so now we have defined all of these routes. Okay, slash login, slash register, slash send OTP, verify OTP, forgot password, reset password. And now there is just one last thing which is left, and that is to basically create a router here in index.js. Okay, and then on that router we'll be calling use method, okay, which can be basically used to add middlewares. Okay, so let me actually do it. Okay, that will be easier for everyone to understand. So first of all, we just need to create a router like this. Okay, then to this router, okay, on this router we'll be calling this use method, and after that we'll be basically passing a path here, or basically a matcher, and after that the route that we just created here, okay, or the router, whatever you might wanna call it. And let's actually do it for authentication first of all. Okay, so I'll write here auth route. Okay, and what I mean by this auth route is simply whatever we are exporting from this auth.js. Okay, so I'm just going to basically require it here. So I'll call const auth route is equal to require. Okay, and then let's actually get it. It's just the neighboring file, so we can get it like this. Similarly, for the user route, we can basically get it quickly. Okay, user route basically, and for its path just slash user. And similarly, I'm going to again repeat it for the user. Okay, so it will be user and here user route. Let me also clear this, that you can basically provide any path here. Okay, that doesn't matter. It, like, all of the paths have to be unique. That is just one thing. Okay, otherwise your app is going to crash. Okay, or basically not going to crash, but it will not show the expected behavior. Okay, let's say if we accidentally keep all these two same, okay, slash user, then what is going to happen whenever a request comes for any user resource, then that will be routed to this auth route. Okay, and after that, if the path doesn't matches, then a 404 error will be thrown. That means not found. Okay, and that is not actually good for us, so we have to basically take care of it. Now as a last step, again we need to export this router that we created in this file. Okay, and so what we are basically doing, we are creating routes for each resource in a separate file, and then we are combining all those in this index.js file. then we can just directly use this final router that we get here inside our app.js file. So here I'll be writing app.use, okay, and you can just simply pass router here, okay, or routes I'm going to call it, okay, because router is, this name is similar to what we are creating here, and I don't want to basically confuse, so I'll keep the name to routes. And here we'll need to actually import routes, so I'll write const routes is equal to require, okay, and then the path to the index.js file, okay, that we just talked about. So slash and then routes and then slash index, just like this, okay. And even if you don't write this index here, okay, then also it's going to be fine, because when we provide a path to a folder, okay, then it's basically going to search for any index file that is present over there, okay, automatically inside that directory. But just for the understanding purpose, I'm going to still write this index here, okay. So now we are done with the routing setup, okay. Now we are basically ready to make API calls, and we'll be able to use all of these controllers that we have created, okay, like the user controller and also this auth controller, okay. And there is a very big difference between this user controller and auth controller. All of the auth controllers are basically not protected, okay. That means user doesn't has to be logged in order to log into our application, or to register, or to reset password, or to forget their password, okay. They can do it when they are even not logged in, okay. That means a user doesn't has to be logged in order to perform those actions, but in order to update someone's profile, a user has to be authenticated, okay. And that difference basically reflects in the route that we set up. As you can see, we have placed this protect middleware before this update, okay, update middleware. So that's it. I think the explanation part is done, okay. And now I'm just going to collapse all of this and then close all these open folders, because now we are just going to solely focus upon one thing, and that is basically to create the mailer functionality here. And for that I'll be creating a new folder, okay, and I'll call it services. So here we can basically, and the idea of services folder is to basically aggregate all of these things like sending SMS, sending mail, sending notification inside one folder, okay. That is the type of structure that I usually follow. Now we'll be basically creating a new file here, and I'll call it mailer.js, okay. And in here we are going to basically implement the logic through which we'll be sending emails, okay. Now in order to explain this to you, let me basically introduce this awesome API, okay, that we'll be using. And this API is basically from SendGrid. I really like their documentation and the implementation that they have done here, okay. This is just an extraordinary email service, okay. I really like it, and I use it in almost all of my applications, okay. So if you haven't created account here, you can just go ahead and create it, because they provide free emails, okay. And you can just send few free emails up to, I don't know the exact limit, but it's around 200, okay. So you can explore that. Now after you are signed into this application, okay, I'll show you how to basically do the setup, but before that we are going to write the code for it, okay. And I'll show its documentation to you, okay. So let's actually open up a new tab here. Okay, so here I'm going to search for SendGrid v3 API, okay. You can do the exact search, okay, and you will be able to get to the page where we are going to find the useful information for implementing mailing functionality. So let it open, and here you can see we are going to basically make use of this endpoint slash v3 mail send, okay. But instead of sending raw API call, we'll be utilizing its package, or you can say SDK that they provide, okay. So behind the scene that SDK is also going to make an API request to the SendGrid server, okay, using the API key that we'll be using shortly, okay. And as you can see, there is a lot that you can pass in the request body, okay. And for the authorization, they basically use the bearer token method that we have also implemented in our application, okay. So there is a lot of things that we can configure in the request body, like the personalization data from to CC, BCC, and everything like that, subject. And you can also create a reply to list, okay. And the content part, basically we can send HTML or plain text, okay. We can also specify if we want to send any attachment, okay. And we can basically configure various other properties for our email, okay. And there is also this mail settings, which is basically quite advanced, okay. This tracking settings and IP pool, I'll basically discuss it in a separate video in great depth, okay. So let me know if you guys want to basically explore more about this SendGrid API, okay. I would love to basically create content on it. So let's now get back to the coding, okay. So we'll be basically writing the code to send email, and for that we again need to go back, and here you need to search for npm.js, okay. So I'm just going to show you SendGrid SDK that is available. Let me correct the spelling, okay. This is a typo mistake. So if you search for it, you will get to see this SendGrid/mail package, okay. So this is a Twilio SendGrid Node.js email service, okay. And behind the scenes, it is using SendGrid v3 API that I just showed you. So first of all, we are going to basically install this package in our application. So I'll pull up my terminal here, okay. Then I'll paste this command, npmi@sendgrid/mail, okay. Now let's talk about its implementation part. So first of all, we are going to write here this import statement. So I'll just call it in the short keyword, okay, sgmail, that means SendGrid mail, okay. Then we are just going to require it, okay, like this @sendgrid/mail. Then after this, we'll be basically setting up the API key, okay. You can use this method set API key, okay, and then just pass the API key that we'll be basically getting, okay. We'll actually explore it in a next video, because just a few minutes ago I tried to create a new account on SendGrid, and their like login functionality is basically down due to some reason. So that is why, in order to save our time, we can do it in the next video, okay. For now we can just write all the implementation, okay. That will not be affected, okay. So if you create your account, okay, that is very good. We'll be seeing how we can create sender, okay, and also get our API key in the next video. But for now, let's just focus on the implementation part. So when you call this set API key method, this is basically going to set the bearer token that I just showed you in the documentation, okay. And after that, we are going to basically create a generic function for sending an email, okay. So I'll call it send sgmail, that means SendGrid mail, okay. Then this is going to be an async function, okay, because sending mail is going to take some amount of time, okay. This is not going to be an instantaneous process because it is involving API calls, okay. So that is going to be asynchronous by its nature. Then after that, in its body, we'll be basically making use of this try catch method here, okay, in order to catch any errors. So let me just write console log error, okay, in case some error happens here. And we'll be basically getting few properties, okay, as an argument to this function. And let me basically define it here. So the first one is going to be recipient, okay. The order can be anything because we are basically destructuring it here, okay. These are named arguments here. So the next will be sender, okay. So this is going to be basically the email of the receiving party and the sending party. And after that, there must be a subject, okay. And if you want to send the content, okay, like whatever the content is going to be there in the email, And the one last thing, attachments. If we want to send any attachments, okay, and please note that we are writing attachments, not attachment, because we can send multiple files, okay. So that is just why we are writing attachments here. Now inside this try block, I'll be basically writing this from, and this from is basically going to be sender, okay. This is going to be the email, okay. We'll create a sender in the next video, okay. But in case if this property is null or undefined, then in that case we can set a fallback, okay, fallback email. So here I'm just going to write contact@codingmonk, okay. You will be setting it to your verified email, okay, and I'll show it to you in great detail. Now after this we have to basically create our message object here, okay, as a second step. And in this message object there is going to be few required properties. First one is to, and this to is going to get the value of this recipient, okay. So what it's basically doing, it's the email of recipient, okay. This is very clear from its name, by the way. And similarly there is going to be another property here which will be from, like who is sending the email. So just for this purpose we have created this form constant, okay. Now after that let me also write a comment here, okay. This will be our verified sender, okay. Let me also make one thing very clear here. We'll have to configure the email, okay, through which we are going to send all of our emails, okay, because you can't just actually make use of anyone's email and start sending mail on their behalf. So we'll have to configure it in our SendGrid dashboard, okay, and I'll show that to you. So don't try to use anyone's email, okay, or any random email, otherwise your emails are going to fail, okay. They won't be delivered, there will be an error message. After that, this subject property, okay, and I'm going to use this shorthand syntax, okay. I just, if the key and the value is same, then we can just write it like this, okay, instead of writing it in the long form, okay. So I hope that makes sense, okay. And after that there is going to be content, but there is not any content keyword name content in this message, so we'll have to call it HTML, okay. So HTML, that is going to be our content, and in place of, and basically there is another property that we can pass here, and that is text. So this will be used when we want to just send a plain text as an email to the user. So I'm just going to comment it for now. And the last property is attachments, again using this shorthand syntax from ES6, okay. Let's actually format it, and now it's time to use this message object that we have created. So we'll be basically returning this sgmail, okay. Sgmail is this instance that we have created here, and on this we can basically call this send method, okay. And to this we just need to pass this message configuration that we have created here, okay, and that is basically going to send an email for us. And let me also tell you that this sgmail.send method basically returns a promise, okay. So that is why we'll be able to use .then .catch, okay, in the controllers when we'll be implementing it, right. Now there is just one more thing. We are not going to directly call this send sgmail method in our controllers, okay. We'll be creating this function here. So let's create it like this, exports dot send mail, okay. This will be basically the function that we'll be using. Again, this is going to be asynchronous because this is going to return a promise, okay. That is why it's going to be asynchronous. Here we'll be getting few arguments. I'm just going to call it args like this. And the reason behind creating this extra function is because we want to create something like, there is a we have to develop our applications in such a manner that when we are testing it or when we are developing it, then we don't accidentally send emails to our users, okay. So to prevent that, I basically use this type of pattern. I just create a if condition. Okay, so I'll be writing process.env and then I'll check the environment. Okay, so this can be accessed via this node underscore env variable, and if it's development, then what I'm going to do, I'll just send back a promise. Okay, and that too in the resolved state. So I'll just create a new promise here. Okay, using this promise, and I'll just send it in the resolved state. So that is basically what is it's going to do. If our application is running in the development mode, okay, then in that case, if we try to send any email, okay, then we'll just get a promise that is immediately resolved. Okay, but the actual email is not going to be sent. But if in the other case, when our application is not running in the development mode, then we'll just return this send as Gmail function and we'll pass these arguments to this. Okay, so I hope this makes sense. Okay, I just use it to prevent, like in some cases you might have seen the in very few cases or rare cases we get some emails, okay, test emails from companies, okay, or organizations, and to just prevent that I use this practice. Okay, so this is the implementation of the mailing functionality. Now how we are basically going to make use of it inside our controller, let me show it to you. So I'm just going to search where I wrote this to do. Okay, here inside this send OTP we basically need to send an email to the user. Okay, so what we'll be doing here, okay, I'll write mail service. Okay, not this mail service from SendGrid email. So let's actually import it at the top first. So I'll write const mail service is equal to, and then this require statement. To basically access the mail service that we have created, we'll have to go back to this services folder and then / mailer. And now on this mail service we can access send mail method that we created, okay, or basically the function. So as you can see, this send email, and here we are going to basically pass the arguments. Okay, and as you can see in this mailer, we actually want to receive these fields: recipient, sender, subject, content, okay, which can be either plain text or HTML, okay, and the list of attachments. So for now, sending recipient, sender, subject and a plain text is going to do the job for us. Okay, so I'm just going to comment out this HTML part. Okay, or we can basically do it like this: HTML and text. Define these two properties separately. Okay, then just enable both of them, text and HTML. Okay, now here we'll be just writing it like this: from, okay, contact @codingmonk.in. again I'm repeating this, you can't just basically enter any random email here. Okay, it has to be the one which is verified by the SendGrid. Okay, so we'll see how we can do that. And in the place of to, you can write the email of the person that you want to send this email to. Okay, so here I'm not going to write any real email. Okay, so I'll just write example @gmail.com. okay, but remember, when we want to send an email, we'll be using the exact email of the user here. Okay, for the subject you can just write any text here. Okay, so I'll just call it OTP for login. Okay, yeah, or we can just write OTP for talk. Okay, name of our application, that is just a fictitious name. Okay, and after that just we want to send a plain text, so we can write something like this: this template string is going to do the job for us. Your OTP is, okay, and then the generated OTP. So we'll be using this new OTP here. Okay, like this, and we can also write this thing here: this is valid for 10 minutes. Okay, as we have implemented it here. So now you understand how we are going to send the email. Okay, and on this method, if you want to basically check if this was successful or not, since this is a promise, you can simply use .then and .cache and finally. Okay, so you can do it like this. Okay, and we can basically improve our error handling here using this .then and cache. So in case the email fails, then we are not going to send a successful response. We'll be sending something like 500, that means it's our server's error. Okay, or you can also send 400, that means something went wrong. And in this case of then, we'll be sending this 200 response code. Okay, so that is just I have explained to you. We can basically do this refactoring later on. Okay, so this is the whole idea behind this mailing functionality here, and basically what is left here is to basically create a new account, SendGrid account. I'll show that to you. Okay, then create this SendGrid API key. Okay, for now I'm just going to basically add this to our config here. Okay, I'll not write any value here, but we'll be pasting a string here. Okay, that will be our API key from SendGrid. And let me also explain one more thing. If like in some cases you might not be able to basically get hold of this process environment here. Okay, this basically environment variables. So for that we can basically use this .env package. Okay, this is, you can find more information about it on npm. So for now I'm just going to implement it here like this. Okay, just require it, and after that we can just call this config method on it. Okay, and then we just need to pass this property path, which is going to basically the path of our environment variable file. Okay, config.env. So I'll write config, let me correct that spelling, config.env. Okay, and now this sg key which is defined inside this config env is going to be accessible here. Okay, so that is it. We have implemented this mailing functionality, set it up our route. Okay, now we are basically ready to test if our routes are working as expected. So we'll be doing this using Postman in the next video. Okay, and we'll also create a SendGrid account and do the rest of the stuff. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Okay, and please make sure to like this video. And let me actually see if there are any questions. There is a question from Manoj. Okay, he's asking how can I subscribe to the channel. Just click on the subscribe button. Okay, I would really appreciate that, and I would also encourage you to join the Discord channel. Okay, there are many members there, more than 140 as of now. So that's it guys, I'll see you in the next video. Okay, and as a side note, I have already posted all of this code. Okay, and the link is provided in the Discord channel. I'll be updating the description shortly. Okay, so that's it. Have a good day. Okay, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for joining in.